To help her guy best friend get over a creative slump, my wife actually filled my fire extinguisher with high-proof alcohol, triggering a massive secondary explosion. At the scene of that raging fire, nearly 100 innocent people were completely swallowed up by the relentless flames. I got slapped with a 30-year prison sentence for negligence. After finally serving my time, I grabbed my walking cane, pushed open the front door to my home, only to get a mango cream cake smashed right into my face. My hair is totally white now from age and absolute misery, but Shen Jiwan still looks just as stunning and charming as she always did. Seeing I am barely moving, my own son forces me down to the floor, while my daughter just kicks me right in the knee. Meanwhile, that guy, best friend of hers, actually steps up and hands me a shiny diamond ring. Shen Jiwan chimes in right after, saying she has been waiting forever for me to finally propose to her. I just lift my blind, cloudy gray eyes, letting that sticky mango juice drip all the way down into my nose and mouth before I quietly say a single word. A suffocating blind guy like me probably cannot even witness your deep affection. Shen Jiwan goes completely pale, and that fancy diamond ring drops to the floor with a loud clatter. 30 years ago, on our way to get engaged, she used those exact same sweet words to feed me mango juice. Now watch this. I completely passed out, giving her the perfect chance to swap that extinguisher. The room goes totally silent, just sweet cream dripping off my cheek. Breaking the silence, my own biological son, Yan Hao, steps right in front of Shen Jiwan, glaring down at me with total and utter disgust. He snaps that if I had not tried to show off and broken the safety rules, his mom would never have suffered so much all these long years. His mother did not even mind taking in a blind guy to care for in his old age. You need to bow down and show gratitude. Stop playing mute. The knuckles gripping my walking cane turn completely white. My throat moves just a little bit. But in the end, I stay completely silent. 30 long years behind bars taught me one harsh lesson. Trying to reason with people who are pretending to be asleep is just the most foolish thing in the world. The relatives standing around see me not fighting back and assume they really hit a nerve. So they eagerly jump right in to join the relentless criticism. The aunt, who always loves drama, rolls her eyes and shrieks loudly. She claims if she had an arsonist for a father, she would have completely given up on life. She tells me having a deeply devoted wife like Jiwan is a total blessing from 8 past lives. So why am I even acting so high and mighty? My daughter Yanran stands off to the side playing with her brand new phone, and she casually chimes in with a perfectly cold tone. She asks if I somehow forgot that I was the one who brought flammable paint into the warehouse and took away nearly 100 lives. Such an unbelievably massive sin to carry. Her mother spent the last 30 years apologizing and paying off all those poor victims' families on my behalf. Without her doing that, did I honestly think I could have ever survived and walked out of prison? I would have been completely taken out for breaking rules and causing that disaster. My chest aches so much I almost burst out laughing at the absolute absurdity of it all. The night before that fire, 30 years ago, Shen Jiwan surprisingly did not stop me from working overtime, and even purposely brought me some mango spiked juice to the warehouse. I drank it and passed out. Then I woke up to raging flames. You will not believe this part. Lu Chen, her closest guy friend, broke the rules and lit cold fireworks indoors just to find some kind of extreme artistic inspiration. When the fire actually erupted, I desperately ran for the extinguisher. But what sprayed out of that red tank was not powder at all. It was high-grade industrial alcohol poured in by Shen Jiwan herself. That massive secondary explosion going off, the very last flash of light my eyes ever saw. Then in court, she cried these pathetic tears, pointing right at me and claiming I got totally drunk and ruined everything. She even told the judge that I was always a heavy drinker and absolutely refused to listen to her advice. She actually claimed I hid booze in the fire extinguisher, and I just stared at her, holding baby Yan Hao in her arms. Not wanting my kid to grow up with an arsonist for a mother, I stepped up and took all the blame. But guess what? On my very first day locked up, she did not send fresh clothes. Just a heavily delayed divorce agreement. She told me she would not divorce me for the kid's sake, but I needed to behave in prison and not drag down their perfect lives on the outside. That little sentence ended up lasting a full 30 years. Carrying the blame for hundreds of lost lives made me an easy target inside, facing violent beatings, endless insults, and getting my head shoved straight into dirty toilets every single day. Add to that my completely ruined eyes from the fire, plus my heavily damaged knees from long-term malnutrition that ache all the way to the bone whenever it rains. Finally, I just let out a dry, bitter laugh right from deep in my throat. That completely perfect, compassionate mask Shen Jiwan has been wearing all this time, finally, seems to show a tiny crack. Her gaze sweeps right over my cloudy eyes and my sticky, mango-stained collar. A quick flash of utter disgust and hidden anxiety briefly crossing her perfectly composed face. She is looking at me like I am absolute garbage, while silently figuring out what tiny bit of value I might still have left. Taking a really deep breath, she gently pushes the kids aside and instantly switches to this incredibly sweet and generous tone. She tells everyone to stop talking, saying I just got out of prison and have been away from society so long that I probably need time to adjust. How, Yanran, he is still your father, so please do not be so harsh. I will take good care of him now so he can finally feel some family warmth. My son and daughter instantly surround her, acting incredibly obedient right on cue. Mom is an absolute saint. Dad, marrying you was honestly a blessing earned across multiple lifetimes. Uncle Luke is remarkably generous too. He completely forgave that terrifying fire incident from years ago, and even gifted this expensive diamond ring to bless you both. Now that is some true class. Tham Kai Veen plays this role perfectly, playing the victim to win, acting like a holy mother who silently bears all grievances while staying completely devoted. Suddenly, her phone starts ringing loudly. It is that urgent signature ringtone coming from the city hospital. Barely hearing a few words, her rosy complexion turns completely pale. The wine glass shatters onto the floor. Get in the car right now. She does not even have time to keep acting. Total chaos. Tham Kai Veen, then, and the two kids rush outside like frantic maniacs. The massive villa is left in a total mess, with only a helpless blind man like me around. I finally find my cane, blindly navigating toward that first floor bathroom. Freezing cold water washes the cream off my face. That stinging pain makes me feel a bit awake. I cannot stay. I know full well this house has absolutely no place for a guy like me. I blindly stumble out the door, relying on my cane to find the way, awkwardly catching a taxi and giving them the city hospital #1 address. That mango juice seeped into my nose and mouth earlier, and my airways are already swelling up. I must reach the hospital, otherwise I will not make it. 30 years in prison, and I have not claimed my justice yet. I refuse to perish like this. At the hospital, after treating my severe allergy symptoms, I prepare to leave. But watch this closely. Walking past the VIP wing, a very familiar voice suddenly stops me dead in my tracks. The door is slightly ajar, letting out the choked sobbing of my daughter Yan Nin. Mom, oh brother Luke N had an incredibly terrible chemo reaction this time. The doctors say he needs an immediate transplant with absolutely no more delays. I know. Tham Kai Veen sounds so shaky, carrying a deep panic I have never heard before. And Anne is my entire world. How could I ever just watch my boy fade away? Through that narrow crack, I cannot actually see the scene inside, but my hearing in the dark has become incredibly sharp over the years. The boy breathing weakly on that hospital bed is definitely Luke N. Luke then had him secretly with someone else back in his younger days. Luke then paces restlessly, his footsteps echoing in the room. Where is that blind fool? Did we not already throw him out onto the streets? Is the medical report perfectly accurate? Tham Kai Veen gasps sharply, her voice suddenly turning incredibly cold and completely resolute. Totally accurate. I bribed the prison medical ward to run those tests a long time ago. Ngim Hu and An are a half match for bone marrow. It is definitely not perfect, but without finding another willing donor, that old man is our only real hope. But mom, wait. My son. Ngim Hao speaks up, his voice carrying a slight hint of hesitation. That old man has such terrible health and a severe allergy condition. Forcing a marrow extraction and injecting strong stimulants might just make him perish right there on the operating table. We cannot worry about all that. Anne is my biological child. My fingers, gripping the blind cane, start trembling violently upon hearing those exact words. So this is the truth. I actually thought she had some lingering affection, or at least wanted to humiliate me by picking me up from prison. Turns out I was brought back just to be a living organ container. While I suffered endlessly, they secretly had a child together. Tham Kai Veen lets out a cold laugh, full of malice. Good riddance. Passing away is better. Back then, if I did not have to save your useless father, and it would not have been disturbed in the womb, and born so terribly weak. Ngim Hu owes Luke then, and he definitely owes an Anne. Taking his life force to pay for his sins is only natural. Luke then suddenly softens his voice, carrying a slight, almost flattering tone toward her. Kai Veen about that fire extinguisher incident years ago. Once Ngim Hu is gone, Nobody will ever uncover our little secret. Luke then sighs deeply, seemingly patting her head gently. You really suffered a lot. Now, thanks to stealing his brilliant idea, I have become an absolute millionaire today. Once Anne has a successful surgery, and we dispose of that blind fool in Hu, our family will finally reunite. Forever. Are you grasping this? Standing outside, every drop of energy in my body instantly freezes solid. The truth behind my 30 unjustly ruined years. They orchestrated the whole thing, and knew it all along. Day and night, I deeply regretted never exposing Tham Kaiven for her true ugly colors. But the crushing reality? This was basically a failed plot to eliminate me. They planned together, which eventually turned into a massive framed setup, maliciously leaving me completely alone and permanently blind for half my entire life. These despicable criminals are now proudly enjoying everything I once owned, even eagerly plotting to drain my very last drop of marrow just to save their own unholy offspring. Mom, do not worry. Yen Nin speaks quite aggressively. If that useless blind guy dares to refuse, I will personally pull his breathing tube. He is just wasting precious oxygen anyway, so he might as well save little brother Luke and instead. Exactly right. Ngim Hao also chimes in agreement. We have to let him know that putting his marrow into little brother Luke N is honestly the greatest possible honor of his completely pathetic life. These are my biological kids, sharing my very DNA, yet they would gladly drain my life force to nurture my enemy's child. A freezing chill spreads from the absolute depths of my heart, quickly icing over my limbs and my body. I feel like nothing more than an absolute total joke. Unable to endure this madness anymore, I stumble backward. My blind cane violently strikes a hard metal chair right out in the hallway. Clang! Who is out there? Thum Kai Vi En calls out from inside, her voice full of harsh suspicion. Letting out a bitter laugh, I ignore my incredibly weak body and just rush desperately toward the main doors. Catch him, someone yells out. Do not let him escape. Thum Kai Vi En screams out frantically from behind. He is an Anne's only hope, she cries. Plunging into the dark night, I stumble around like a completely abandoned stray dog. Not daring to go anywhere near the security cameras, I decide to hide inside a massive junkyard right outside the city. The place reeks horribly, yet it remains my one and only real sanctuary. During the day, I just hide out inside an abandoned shipping container. At night, I scavenge for whatever leftover moldy buns I can find. My fingers get sliced open pretty badly, getting completely ruined in the process. But I barely feel it. The sheer hatred burning in my heart hurts 1,000 times worse. Thum Kai Vi En calls non-stop, ringing endlessly like a cursed talisman. Looking down at the screen, an accessibility app loudly reads out those two mocking words. Beloved wife. It goes from a sharp ache at first, straight into total numbness. I block her number, she calls using another one, and I just block her again. Texts from YNE, N, and Gi, MHO completely bombard me one by one as well. First comes the fake concern, where are you, Dad? Then follows their absolutely shameless begging. Your little brother, LCN, cannot wait much longer. Finally, they drop the act with raw curses. You stubborn, useless old fool. You can run for now, but you cannot hide forever. Refuse to save LCN, and I will ensure you never find any peace in Jiang Thenh. My own flesh and blood completely ignores my 30 years of intense suffering and severe injuries. Yet they actually threaten my very existence. All because of a total outsider. But Thum Kai Vi En has way too much power here. Just 3 days later, while I dig through the garbage for half a bottle of water, a foreman suddenly storms in with a huge crowd. That is him, someone yells, the twisted arsonist criminal. The foreman angrily kicks away the small bit of food I barely managed to find. Do not pollute my turf, he snarls. Other scavengers quickly gather around us too. Someone cranks up a blazing loud news broadcast on their phone screen. The recently released convict coldly refuses to donate his marrow, totally denying a crucial second chance to a critically ill 10-year-old genius boy. In the video, Thum Kai Vi En tearfully accuses me. He resents me for not waiting back then, she sobs. So now, he takes his bitter revenge on his own son's health. That is a precious life at stake. Where is Gi MH's conscience? The comment section absolutely floods with incredibly harsh insults. Why is this terrible guy walking free, refusing to help a sick kid? Is he even considered human anymore? Track down all his personal info, force him out into the open. My heart suddenly clenches tight, hurting so intensely that I can barely even breathe. She makes up lies yet again, claiming LCN was adopted just to await my release, effectively putting me on a brutal moral roasting spit. I do not argue with them, completely lacking the strength for it. Trembling, I pick up my scattered coins from the mud and slowly walk away from the scrapyard. But wait, things are about to get so much worse. Reaching the alleyway, something feels very wrong. The eerie sensation of being watched makes my hair stand straight up. There, that blind guy is GMH. A piercing shout suddenly rings out, exactly like a drop of water hitting boiling oil. Countless frantic footsteps instantly rush in. Cameras and microphones completely swarm me all at once, blinding me under intense flashes. Even though I cannot see, I still feel their burning heat. GMH, did you really go to prison for burning 100 innocent victims? How do you even sleep at night? Why exactly do you refuse to donate marrow for your adopted son? Is it just because you want a bigger payout? Madam Thum Kai Vi N says she offered you 5 million yuan, yet you still refused. Do you actually want to see the poor kid perish? Their questions grow sharper, turning more vicious by the second. Keeping my head down, I shield my face with my arm, desperately pushing my way out. Get lost, I shout. I do not know any adopted son. Are you feeling guilty? GMH? Scum like you totally deserves to be blind. Using the pure chaos, someone violently shoves me, while others start throwing rotten eggs and completely spoiled vegetables right at my face. I look like a pathetic clown with nowhere left to hide, entirely covered in filth, completely scarred inside. Suddenly, a commotion ripples through the crowd. Move away, step back. The familiar clicking of high heels echoes out loudly, carrying an absolutely undeniable aura of authority. Escorted by heavy guards, Thum Kai Vi N steps in, bringing GMHO and YN Ni N along. The reporters instantly pivot all their camera lenses toward them. Are you seeing this act? Right before the cameras, Thum Kai Vi N shifts to a nauseatingly worried expression, tears instantly falling. GMH, have you caused enough trouble yet? If you want revenge on me, aim it at me. Do not play sick games with an fragile life. Just agree to sign the marrow donation forms. I will kneel before everyone here. You can even take my entire life if you want. GMHO supports her from the side, roaring angrily at the flashing cameras. Dad, do you have any shame left? Mom has completely shattered her heart for this family. You just got out of prison and you pull this stunt. LCN might not be your biological son, but he called you dad for years. How can you be so cruel? YN Ni and even lunges forward, fiercely grabbing my collar while sobbing out loud. Dad, please save my little brother. You are already a cripple anyway. Your bone marrow could save the nation's brightest young flower. Is that really not worth it? With red eyes, I stare intently straight at them. Every single word I speak, dripping with intense hurt and deep hatred. His life is a life, but is mine completely worthless? I am demanding a total retrial for that tragic fire from years ago. I want LC then. You. Thum Kai Vi and I want all of you to finally pay the price. I force the words out, nice and slow. Want to take my marrow to save Luke Than's precious kid? In your dreams. Tham Kai Veen's fake sad face instantly froze up. A wild flash of pure anger completely took over. She leaned right into my ear, whispering so only I could catch her absolute freezing tone. And Game Hu, if you won't play nice, I'll make you pay. You really forced my hand here. Stepping back, she shot a quick look to her assistant. Just a few minutes later, heavy and chaotic footsteps started echoing from a distance, completely mixed with these absolutely heart-wrenching, dramatic cries. A whole angry group in mourning clothes pushed right through the crowd, instantly trapping me in a tight circle. These were the families from that massive fire 30 years ago. They looked much older now, but that pure hatred brewing in their eyes for 3 decades was somehow way worse and deeper than it ever was back in the courtroom. Tham Kai Veen kept secretly funding them all these years, constantly brainwashing them into fully believing that Ngim Hu was the exact reason they lost their loved ones. Ngim Hu, you monster, I'm gonna make you pay dearly for what happened to my son. How can you even show your face? You took my husband away, and now, you won't even save a kid. You absolute monster, make him pay. Take this beast down. Fists, wooden sticks, and pure rage just started raining down on me like a storm. Using a mix of fake favors and deep hatred, Tham Kai Veen had completely weaponized them, turning them into her absolute sharpest blades against me. I curled up tight on the dirt, guarding my vitals. But that brutal pain just crashed in from absolutely everywhere. A broken rib pierced my lung, and every single breath carried this awful, heavy, metallic taste. Yen Neen just stood right on the outside, just watching it all coldly, even faking a dramatic gasp. Don't hit his waist. Don't break him completely. We still really need his marrow. That line was way colder than the actual fists hitting me, literally freezing my heart and lungs solid. To all of them, I was just a walking marrow container, spitting out something dark. I reached out through the total chaos, and finally managed to grab hold of my blind cane. "If you guys want me gone so badly," I roared out loud, exploding with this desperate surge of strength. I shoved the guy in front of me away, and just sprinted straight toward the massive pit in the construction zone. It was an unfinished concrete foundation, absolutely packed with these incredibly sharp metal rebars sticking straight up like spikes. "Stop him right now. Do not let him get away." I dragged my completely broken body all the way to the edge. Right below my feet was a 10-meter drop straight into an absolute forest of tangled metal spikes. "Ingame Hu, what are you doing? Get back here." Tham Kai Vien's absolutely panicked scream echoed from right behind me. She honestly didn't care if I faded away forever. She just feared her precious marrow supply getting totally ruined. I turned back toward her, flashing this incredibly tragic, but finally free smile. I let my body fall backwards. Tham Kai Vien, this life, the next, and forever after. I curse every single one of you to an absolutely miserable end. Tham Kai Vien rushed forward like a complete maniac, her voice shaking with this completely unprecedented panic. "No, I won't force you anymore. Just come back." Then crunch. A heavy, sickening, piercing sound rang out, way more jarring than any normal impact ever could be. All the color drained completely right out of Yennin's face in an instant. "Brace yourselves for this." She rushed the edge, witnessing a sight that would absolutely give her nightmares forever. The father she completely despised, beat down, and treated like absolute trash, was now hanging there like a broken doll. Several massive metal spikes pierced right through his chest, with heavy dark stains dripping down the iron, totally soaking the dirt for beneath him. He's gone. The bone marrow is ruined. Tham Kai Vien just collapsed right into the muddy ground, staring down at his completely shattered body at the bottom. A weird wheezing sound escaped her tight throat as she shook uncontrollably like a leaf. It was totally over. Everything was finished. Lucan's only lifeline just completely snapped. A heavy, suffocating darkness closed in, feeling exactly like sinking into the deep ocean. But way colder than that awful, suffocating feeling was this harsh voice drifting straight to my ear. "Doctor, please stop wasting time talking about his chances of survival. I just need to know if extracting his marrow right now will affect the procedure." Yep, that was Tham Kai Vien. Her voice completely dropped. That fake sobbing act she used for the media, leaving nothing behind but pure, absolute coldness. I suddenly felt so strangely weightless, with my eyelids heavy as solid lead. That incredibly brutal chest pain proved those metal spikes didn't actually finish me off instantly, but they definitely turned me into a totally helpless fish stuck on a chopping block. Miss Tham, while he still has a faint pulse, his brain and liver are severely damaged. There's a huge chance he might just never wake up again. If we force this marrow extraction surgery right now, he will very likely fade away right on the operating table. The strange doctor's voice carried real hesitation. Fade away on the table? The guy chiming in right then was Luke then. His tone actually leaked this completely sick, undeniable excitement. "Wait, isn't that totally perfect for us? We just write it off as a medical accident, and an Anne gets saved. There are absolutely no buts here." This time, the person speaking up was actually my own son. "Ingame How, doctor. As his immediate family, we fully agree to completely waive all emergency care for him. Just do whatever you need to maintain his vital signs long enough until the surgery is totally finished. That is it." He paused a second, clearly shooting a look of pure disgust right at my bed. "Honestly, this old guy sticking around is just suffering anyway. Giving his marrow to his brother Luke is the only real contribution he'll ever make." "Absolutely." My daughter Yennin's voice sounded chillingly light. "Doctor, you need to set this up fast. Your brother Luke is still waiting. If this blind old man actually doesn't make it, that's just his awful luck. Don't ruin our goal here." Every single word felt like a sword straight through my heart. I lay completely frozen on that cold operating table. I couldn't move a muscle, but thanks to my desperate will to survive, my hearing became exceptionally, painfully sharp. Turns out, in their eyes, I'm not even considered a human being anymore. I am literally just a walking container for bone marrow, disguised as a father. A sharp sound hits my ears. A page turns. The medical refusal form and the forced bone marrow donation agreement already fully signed. Tham Kai Vien tosses the pen down. "Set up the surgery immediately," she orders. "I want every single media outlet right here to live stream this incredibly touching, earth-shattering rescue mission. I want everyone to see how generous I, Tham Kai Vien, truly am." letting my ex-husband redeem his past mistakes. Messy footsteps quickly fade away, leaving only the doctor standing alone in my quiet hospital room. Suddenly, gentle hand presses down softly against my carotid artery. Then, a very low, quiet voice whispers right into my ear. Uncle Guy, they're gone. Pushing every last ounce of my strength, I manage to make my finger twitch just slightly. The doctor grips my hand tightly, his palm feeling warm. I am Tiu turned 30 years ago. You sponsored a burned worker's little boy so he could actually go to school. Do you still remember? Even back then I had my doubts. I just didn't believe you would ever commit such a basic, stupid mistake. The doors of memory swing wide open. Turns out, heaven isn't ready to cut off my path just yet. I use everything I have to force out a hoarse gasp from deep inside my throat. Please don't let me fade away. I want to make them spit out every single thing they swallow. 3 days later, I become the most famous vegetative patient in all of Jiangthenage. Under Director Turn's secret arrangement, my complete brain failure certificate is faked. Absolutely, perfectly. In reality, even though those steel bars looked absolutely terrifying, they somehow miraculously missed every single one of my vital organs. Nourished by some top-tier specialized medicine, my consciousness is waking up more and more with every single passing day, while my physical strength slowly builds back up. Meanwhile, just outside this hospital room, Thum Kai Vi En is currently directing the most epic, spectacular play of her entire life. She completely bought off countless media outlets, turning this whole bone marrow transplant into the biggest, most touching news story of the year. A guilty man repenting is worth solid gold. The criminal father regrets everything before his final breath, donating marrow to save his genius adopted son. True love knows no boundaries. Miss Thum Kai Vi En tearfully forgives her arsonist ex-husband, doing whatever it takes just to save a precious life. On the television screen, Thum Kai Vi En cries her eyes out for the cameras. Even though Guy MH made terrible mistakes, he finally woke up and repented at the very end. Even though he is now in a vegetative state, he still genuinely wants to use his broken body to make one last contribution to this family. LC then holds her close. He speaks with deep affection. Kai Vi En is far too kind. We will carry Guy MH's burden and raise him properly. Plus, Guy MHO and YN Ni N have totally become the shining examples of filial piety. They wipe my body and feed me water during their live stream, then immediately spin around to play the victim on camera, dragging in more fans. Look, guys, this right here is our dad. Even though he was pretty awful before, we still chose to completely forgive him. Please click the shopping cart down below to support our shattered family. I just lie here on this hospital bed, my eyes tightly closed, listening to every single word of this. My hatred doesn't even burn like hot fire anymore. Instead, it settles deep down into a mysterious block of 10,000-year-old ice. Now pay close attention. The night before the surgery, LC Thun and Thum Kai Vi En visit my room. Thinking I'm basically a vegetable, they drop all their filters completely. After tomorrow, when Guillaume H passes away on that operating table, past secrets will truly vanish without a single witness. LC Thun's voice carries a deeply toxic sense of twisted pleasure. All those old stories will turn into eternal secrets the moment he gets cremated. And man, that fire back then was truly beautiful. Too bad you only see something like that once in a lifetime. Thum Kai Vi En lets out a soft laugh, her fingers tracing my cheek. Her nails leave a stinging scratch across my skin. That's right, she says, who could have ever guessed? This idiot actually went to prison in your place for 30 years. And now, he has to donate marrow to your biological son. LC then, tell me, how can such a gullible fool even exist? Ha ha ha. LC then chuckles softly. We must thank those kids. Without Guy MHO and YN Ni N playing along, this act would be impossible. Those two ungrateful, white-eyed wolves. As long as you give them enough cash, their biological father means absolutely nothing. Shh, keep your voice down. Thum Kai Vi En teases, playfully. Do not wake up our god of wealth. Even though I'm in a vegetative state, they boldly flirt right in front of me, fantasizing about their wonderful life after I finally pass. But they have absolutely no idea about the micro recorder tucked under my pillow, flashing a faint red light. And beneath these blankets, the same calloused hand that gripped a cane for 30 long years. It has now clenched into a furious fist. Oh, you're not ready for this. Thum Kai Vi En. LC, then you set up the stage, so I'll gladly help you sing this final act. Except this time around, the lead role has changed hands. The highly anticipated day of the surgery finally arrives. to grab the absolute highest viewership possible. Thum Kai Vi N actually went crazy enough to let all the media inside the surgical prep room live streaming my final moments. Flash after flash, cameras light up the operating room like broad daylight. I am wheeled in, my entire body hooked up to tubes, wearing an oxygen mask. Right beside me is LCN, the one receiving the transplant, their so-called genius prodigy, wearing her blue surgical scrubs. Thum Kai Vi N delivers her grand final speech directly to the flashing cameras. GMH, you can rest easy now. Your bone marrow will flow through N's body, and you'll get to watch us live happily ever after. She leans down, pretending to plant a gentle kiss on my forehead. But the exact second her lips are about to touch me, my eyes snap wide open. My eyes once cloudy and gray now burn bright red like literal fire pits. Fueled by the drugs and pure, unadulterated rage, glaring right at her. Tham Kai Veen completely loses her mind at that sudden terrifying glare, letting out a shriek as she collapses onto the floor. The whole room freezes in total shock. Absolute silence. Meanwhile, the livestream chat is absolutely exploding with insane speed. I rip the oxygen mask right off my face, ignoring the sharp pain in my chest. I slowly sit up from that operating table like a demon crawling straight out of the underworld. Tham Kai Veen, who exactly did you want to pass away peacefully? My voice is rough and totally hoarse, but it echoes perfectly clear through the collar mic. A monster. Luke then hides behind his bodyguards in pure terror, his face completely pale. Doctor, hold him down right now. It is just a final burst of energy. Give him a sedative immediately. Ngim Hao and Yen Nin shrank back in total fear, trembling uncontrollably. A final burst of energy, huh? I just let out a cold laugh, pull a recorder from under my pillow, and hit play. The fire extinguisher filled with alcohol, plus all our little schemes against him, will turn into a permanent secret once he is cremated. This idiot went to prison for us for 30 long years. And now, he even has to donate his marrow to our biological kid. That exact conversation between Luke then and Tham Kai Veen from last night echoes through the empty room, broadcasting live to thousands of families watching. The viewers, who were just crying tears of sympathy, absolutely lose their minds. What in the world is happening right now? Getting rid of the witness. That kid is actually Luke then and Tham Kai Veen's real son, not adopted. They staged that fire 30 whole years ago. Tham Kai Veen frantically lunges forward, desperately trying to snatch the recorder away. It is fake. That is completely synthesized. Ngim Hu, you lunatic. You faked this just so you wouldn't have to save an N. I raise my hand and deliver an incredibly brutal slap right across her face. 30 years of pent-up fury behind that single hit. Tham Kai Veen gets sent flying through the air, crashing hard into a medical cart as a red stain drips from her mouth. That strike right there? That is for the naive fool you two deceived for 3 straight decades. Right on cue. Director Trong marches in with a full squad of police officers, holding 2 heavy folders in his hands. Everyone, after running the DNA test, the probability of a biological match between the patient Luke N and Mr. Luke then is 99.99%. On top of that, the official re-examination report for the chemical residue left inside the fire extinguisher from that specific fire scene 30 years ago is finally ready. They found traces of high concentration industrial alcohol inside it, and using modern recovery techniques, they managed to pull a clear set of fingerprints. Tham Kai Veen's fingerprints are printed right on that tank. Absolute undeniable proof. I just watch her completely collapse to the ground, then look over at Luke, then turning pale as ash. I glance at my son and daughter, both practically losing their minds in pure panic. I laugh, tears finally spilling over. 30 years of injustice, losing my sight, my entire family ruined. Tham Kai Veen, then everything you two owe me. It is finally time to pay it all back, with interest. Now watch the fallout. That livestream quickly becomes the biggest scandal in the entire history of Jiangking. The cops arrest Tham Kai Veen and Luke then right there on the spot. Even as she gets dragged away in cuffs, Tham Kai Veen is still screaming like a total maniac. I am innocent. I only did it to save someone. Ngim Hu, you cannot do this to me. We were married. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I just stand there, staring coldly as she gets dragged out like a complete madwoman. Married? The second you poured alcohol into that extinguisher, the second you shoved that mango cake into my face, we became sworn enemies. As for Luke N, the kid wakes up on the table, realizes there is no marrow coming, and his real parents are locked up. His condition instantly takes a massive nosedive. I didn't step in to save him. I'm just a guy, not some forgiving saint. I am definitely not sacrificing my own body to save the offspring of my worst enemy. And now, it is time for the final piece of reckoning. Kim Hao and Yen Nin get nailed for charity fraud, elder abuse, and teaming up with those two to completely drag my name through the mud. It isn't enough for heavy prison time, but they get slammed with massive civil fines and a ruined permanent record. Now, they are kneeling at the hospital gates, begging me, "Dad, we were tricked. We really still love you. Now that your name is cleared, you are definitely going to get a massive payout from the government. You cannot just abandon us like this. I am your own biological daughter." I lean on my cane, staring down at these two ungrateful traitors who happen to share my DNA. Biological daughter, huh? I just point at the raw scar on my chest. When I threw myself into that barbed wire pit, what were you thinking? Were you just wondering if my bone marrow was still usable? While I was lying on that table, you were streaming it, profiting off my total misery. As far as I'm concerned, my kid stopped existing the second I went to prison. 30 years ago. Right now, you two are just strangers I used to know. I turn my back and walk away, not giving them a single ounce of hesitation. Behind me, and hear their desperate sobbing mixed with vicious curses as they start blaming each other. But I never look back. 1 year later, I take the government payout and that massive settlement from suing Tham Kai Vien, and use it to set up a support fund for the visually impaired and wrongfully convicted. My eyes have gone through several intense surgeries by now. I will never get normal vision back, but I can finally make out the rough shapes and outlines of the world around me. And honestly, that is enough for me. My conscience is clear. Later that day, I take a quiet trip out to the site of that original fire. They actually rebuilt the area into a peaceful memorial park. I set down a bundle of white flowers at the monument, gently tracing my fingers over the nearly 100 names etched into the stone. I finally claimed justice for everyone involved. And honestly, for myself too. The wind rustles right through the trees, sounding almost like the quiet whispers of old friends. On the way back downtown, I walk past an overpass and notice this ragged young guy and girl physically fighting over one plain water bottle. Yep, it is Kim Hao and Yen Nin, without Tham Kai Vien and Luke, then shielding them anymore. Completely stripped of their fancy, degrees, and former reputation, they can only barely scrape by in the absolute darkest corners of this massive city. Yen Nin looks up, a tiny flicker of hope lighting up her cloudy eyes. She just opens her mouth to call me dad, but I slide my sunglasses on and turn away. I just walk right past them, totally calm, looking at stray dogs by the street. No stopping, absolutely no spare change given, and genuinely not a single ounce of emotion. In this huge, vibrant world, I have finally managed to wash away every single stain and false accusation held against me. The rest of my life is incredibly precious now. I will not waste one more second on people who simply do not deserve it. The sunlight is still completely gorgeous. I straighten my back, stepping strongly forward into a brand new life of my own. Yeah,